Alright guys, so sorry, but this review is a little bit later than I wanted. A whole day later, in fact. And if I'm going to be honest, there are three things that went into that. One, I'm editing a video which kind of needs to come out at a specific time, and I need done relatively soon. You'll see when it comes out. Two, I simply forgot until 12 a.m. in the morning, well after I had finished my editing for the day, and decided to just relax and do some exercise, get rid of this fat vumper of mine. And if I'm to be honest, the third thing is that I haven't felt this bored with the volume since Volume 6. And even then, Volume 6 had a lot of small things that I really liked. Like, not to say Volume 8 hasn't had small things I liked, but when I think of Volume 6, I don't think of being bored. Well, I do, but I don't think of that as much. I think of, like, I like the entire bit with John and his team in, I forgot what it was called. Argus. It's Argus, actually. I remember. And I liked that. It was brief, but it was really heartfelt to me. And when I think of, like, going back to rewatch Volume 6 for, like, abridging purposes, for example, I think I'm gonna have fun, like, abridging that moment, like, making it dark and not heartfelt at all, but, like, actually just rewatching that. It makes me feel happy. But when I was abridging Volume 8, the first half, I just didn't feel it. Like, I felt the jokes. Like, I felt them coming to me over time. And I'm still happy with how it came out. Very, very much so. There were some things that I was very excited to go with. But the difference between scripting Volume 7 and Volume 8 was that with Volume 8, I was excited to be going back to those characters I wrote. While in Volume 7, I was excited to write jokes about what was happening. Because I liked what was happening in the volume. Like, I don't think Volume 7 is a masterpiece. But in the context of RWBY, I legitimately think Volume 7 is a pretty good volume. Volume 8 just hasn't had that to me. It's low energy, it's very slowly paced, it's very predictable, and so uninteresting. Like, I can't be the only one who thought it's just a part of you, not the whole thing would come back through Nora, obviously, to someone like Penny or Oscar. You know, because Oscar, Ozpin's a part of me, Penny, the Maiden's a part of me. I thought that would come back through her through that. I also predicted there would be just a simple jailbreak of Watts, and that RWBY would silverize the Hound. Admittedly, that was a bit of a joke, that the Hound would be a super badass until it met RWBY, and she just looked at it and it died. But then it happened, essentially, and there's nothing of real interest to me. If any of those things happened in the trailer or the sneak peeks for this half of the volume, I didn't watch those. I legitimately did not watch those. I didn't care. This volume is failing to capture my interest because more and more RWBY walks away from what I liked about it initially. The light tone, the fun characters, moments that aren't plot, or focused on just dealing with another character's hang-ups, but are just friends talking, not drama, not being upset with each other, just fucking hanging out. Like that whole scene, right, with Sun and Neptune at the end of Volume 2, Episode 4, could have literally just been brought up very briefly, but I liked it because it was just a short moment of two mates having a two-sentence conversation, and just you get an idea of their dynamic, the friendship there. I like that small little bit that was not needed. I like all the times of John trying to flirt with Weiss that really were not necessary at all to the plot, but they were fun because you got to see these friends interacting. And these just aren't a part of RWBY anymore, and I get why. Don't give me shit like, it's such a serious situation. Of course they wouldn't have this. I get it. But it being a serious situation that's this serious is what's making this feel boring to me. I feel drained by RWBY. It's not burnout, because we just had a 3-month, I think, something like that, hiatus. It's just, I'm not interested anymore. I'm watching it because I feel weird not watching it, if that makes any sense. So, what do I think of this episode? Well, it has only been 2 months, but this is the single funniest thing I saw all year. And I saw the new ProZD skit that came out, and I love ProZD, I love his content, but this episode still made me laugh more. Literally at one point, I was physically on the floor because of how funny this episode unintentionally is. It is a great case of when a show tries to be dark, crosses the line, and just becomes funny again. For one thing, the way Blake says Penny is leaking, it just made me snicker. It's like, it didn't make me laugh yet, but it was a snicker, and it was a bad start for an episode that's meant to be, ooh, grimdark, grrr. Then Klein says Penny's basic anatomy is similar enough to a person, and, excuse me? How is her anatomy at all similar to a human? It's got, like, skin, muscle, nervous tissue, a vascular system. I mean, she has leaking, but I don't think she's got a vascular system like a human does. How is her anatomy similar enough to a person? She's got to have joints. She's got to have, like, fucking little electronics all across her body, different systems and shit. She's going to have wires and all that. Did Pietro just model that off a human? I feel like there are much better ways to design an automaton than basing it off a person, like the entire internals of a person. I also like how the emergency power for the Schnee Manor isn't automatic, but I mean, maybe that's how it is in real life. I don't know. It just felt weird. Then there's Weiss saying it's unfair that the Schnee Manor has backup power in case of a city-wide blackout, but the other people in Atlas don't. But does Weiss not realize that this is because backup generators cost a lot of money? And you can't just make them cheaper or dole them out for free, because you just can't do that. That's not how life works. Like, Atlas is gonna, like, shell out the money, or Mantle and Atlas is gonna shell out the money to put all these generators into every single house, which is just going to put them in debt, because they're going to have to pay the people to make them, and the people who make them aren't just going to do it without needing payment. They're just going to do it out of the goodness of their hearts, because that is so much work. You're going to use all that time and you're just going to die. So how exactly is everyone in Atlas supposed to get a backup generator, Weiss? Generally, you can't even fit one in a house. Do you not see how big yours is? And you can't have one of these generators powering a bunch of houses. Like, how is this unfair? You know, I've been in this situation. Not exactly. Like, we don't have Grimm in real life. I've been in blackouts before. And when I think of rich people with backup generators, I don't think, that's unfair, we should have a backup generator. I think, fucking rich cunts. And that's it. It's a minor squibble. It's a joke. Speaking of something that's minor but I find funny, they just sent May, no, not that May, the one that's a marigold, no, not that marigold, yes, that one, all on her own to protect Mantle. Does Blake really think she's more necessary in the manor than helping May? Okay, so Ruby is Penny's best, generally only real friend. I get why she's there, because Penny just showed up, and Ruby's got to be there by Penny's side. And Weiss, she technically partially owns the fucking house, and this whole thing is kind of her responsibility because it's in her house. Why can't Blake go with May to actively save lives? Again, I've heard, like, even Weiss says it, Atlas needs help. Atlas, like, people are gonna die if they don't stay to help Atlas. People are gonna die anyway, even if they do stay. But the people in the crater, they also need help. If you stay, the crater is being protected by two people. I think Joanna and Fiona are both in the crater, but they didn't show anyone else who could protect the people of Mantle. Atlas has a fucking military. Spaceships, well, not spaceships, they can't go to space with dust. Airships, it's got military, like, personnel, it's got, like, paladins, it's got, like, knights, it's got all this shit to protect the people of Atlas. Mantle, the people in the crater, literally have two people, and sure, May and Blake would make that only 4 people, but 4 people is more than 2 people, and proportionally, adding 2 people to 2 people is a bigger jump than adding 2 people to several thousands of people who have guns, and potentially other huntsmen in Atlas, who are more likely to protect Atlas than Mantle, because, everything's unfair to Mantle, and they gotta write it like that. Besides, she's not actively working to save lives in the episode, she's just being a lump in the manor. I don't see the moral high ground in staying at Atlas to fucking fight off the Grimm that are attacking Atlas. The only people Blake saves in this episode are her own friends, and even then it doesn't really count, because if that Grimm just didn't show up, the episode wouldn't change at all. When Ruby's on the ground. I'll talk about that later. Like, Blake can't even take out, like, Blake fights 2 Grimm in the episode, one of them mollywops her, but that's the Hound, so that should be expected. The Hound is a badass, and the other one is just a fucking, is that like a Ravager? Is it a Ravager? A Tyrannid Ravager. I think that's it. Put up the actual name me if I got that wrong, because it's pretty much that. It's even got the Venom Spitter. I think Ravagers can have, like, the mouth acid. I'll have to ask James at some point, or I'll just look it up. Anyway, Ruby kills it in 1 slash, and, like, yeah, she took it from behind and by surprise, but I can't help but notice that Blake is a real gibbon here. She's like, Ruby, help up! Help me get up! And, like, she just not use her clones to get behind it and slice it in half. She's cut through a lot with her sword. She's cut clean through metal. I also found it funny when Weiss is like, think you can handle it, and Whitley says, assuming you can handle that, and then Weiss is like, we really need to work on your attitude. Like, bitch, your entire fucking team makes snarky remarks like that. This is like if I had a sister, and she made a snarky remark to me, and I'm like, oh, you gotta work on your attitude, when my best mates are James, Tyrant, and Huand. The only one of my really close mates that doesn't make snarky remarks all the time is Kitty. I also found Penny's eyes turning red when they were hacked really funny. It's like that one scene from Rise of Skywalker where 3PO's eyes turn red for no reason. Why would her eyes have the technological ability to turn red? You do know that... Could you really just hack a light to make it change the color that it produces? Isn't there hardware necessary for that? Like, you could do it for a computer, but I think there are physical lights in her eyes, unless the eyes are just displays, which just feel weird to me, that they're just displays on a white board. Does that mean her actual physical sight is not from the perspective of her eyes? Well, no, because we see that it is from the perspective of her eyes when she looks at Tyrion from a point of view shot. Would that not mean that her eyes have to be actual cameras? Why do the LEDs have the ability to change color? What purpose do these evil eyes have, Pietro? And why, Watts, would you, in the delicate situation you are in, spend your time to write that virus in a way that will cause the eye change? And based on what Penny says, no, he did not have this virus pre-ready, because why would he have a virus pre-made to hack into the robot to make it open the vault, when until after he was already incarcerated, he would have no purpose for that? He obviously made the virus while he was working in Ironwood's workshop, which just goes to prove that everyone in Atlas is completely incompetent, because they couldn't fucking notice that. But he obviously didn't have it pre-prepared. Like, why would he assume, oh, there's a good chance Penny's going to get the maiden powers, I'll just get this whole hacking thing ready? Because if he had it prepared before Penny was a maiden, he wouldn't have it make her go to the fucking vault. And there's no point, oh my fucking god, why would he spend his time in that very difficult situation to make sure, oh, gotta make sure those eyes turn red, we gotta make sure she looks evil? Or did the virus just magically do that? And then Nora says, it's just a part of you, not all of you. Paraphrasing. But actually, no, it's not a part of her at all. It's a virus. It's a foreign element. It's not part of her. That is stupid. My thought was that Nora would say this to Penny when Penny's having, like, a character, like an identity crisis about her maiden powers. That's what I assume it come back for. But no, she's telling Penny that it's just a part of you, when it actually objectively isn't. It's like if I had the naughty virus that everyone's talking about right now, and someone said, it's just a part of you. And I'm thinking, no, it's fucking not. If it was a part of me, I wouldn't feel the way I do, would I? I also like how Ruby goes completely limp after the Hound whacks her, as if she was just knocked out. But then, at the perfect time, she wakes back up for 5 fucking seconds to tell people the Hound is after Penny, and then he drops her and she gets knocked unconscious again. Like, the only purpose for Ruby to be unconscious here is so the Hound can have a brief moment scaring Whitley and Willow, which adds nothing to the plot because it doesn't stop Whitley from finishing his computer stuff. It doesn't actually add anything. And, like, really, why didn't the Hound fly through the fucking wall to break it open and just grab Penny directly? Maybe he's just got really good manners? Or maybe he's just a fucking idiot who can't see the gigantic glowing lights? Even though, why would Salem design a Grim that can't see with its fucking eyes? Why? Why would you do that, Salem? Like, you could easily just have Ruby does not get knocked out, and then the Hound flies directly to Penny, Ruby jumps over, does a silver eye thing, and you just have Weiss's Armagigas kill it. Or you just have Willow in the room push over a thing to kill it. If you still want Whitley and Willow to kill it, just have Whitley finish up the computer thing, show up in the room as the Hound's there, then when the Hound's getting back up and they see it, they just shove it off the edge again and they drop something on it. Like, it's filler. You know, it's what it is. It's an unnecessary scene as far as I'm concerned right now. There's no real justification to have it. And there's something deeply humorous to me that Ruby can go from needing to take deep breaths to use her Silver Eyes in Volume 6, to activating them the second she sees Cinder without that in Volume 7, to needing to take breaths again in this episode, and then just shooting the Hound without doing that later on in the same episode. Also, the Hound beating up Penny when Penny was actively going to open the vault and self-terminate, which is why I say Why would Watts spend that time to make sure the virus makes her fucking eyes glow red? But then why is the Hound beating up Penny? Why would Watts program Penny to do something that is not what Salem wants? Or why would Salem make the Hound go stop Penny from doing something that Salem wants it to do? This just feels weird. Like, I'd assume that Watts is, like, specifically programmed the virus to do those two very specific actions in a very specific location in a set order of events, and not just that the virus happened to make her want to do that. And then we see, oh my god, the Hound is a person inside of a Grimm, and it's literally just Spider-Verse Kingpin. Look at it! This is the part, this nearly got me on the floor. I was on the edge of my seat laughing, because it looks stupid. It doesn't look scary. It's not, ooh, grimdark. It's not, oh, this is so tragic and sad. I feel bad for this person. Salem's evil. I just thought it's Spider-Verse Kingpin, and that's really funny to me. And then it dies. It just fucking dies. The most successful antagonist of this entire volume. A character who, proportional to their screen time, has done better than any other antagonist. Well, proportional to their screen time, I guess the White Fang Lieutenant is technically the best, because he has done one thing, and he succeeded at that thing, which is beating up Weiss. Every other thing he did, like, he successfully organized the rally, he successfully served Adam. The White Fang Lieutenant never fucked up, so I guess he would technically proportionally be the best. But proportionally, the Hound has done pretty much nothing wrong in its entire run, and then it dies. Just like that, in the first episode of the second half, right as we get back. And I was hoping, like, in vain, that the Hound Grimm would be Rooster Teeth going back and expanding on the scene where Oobleck says some Grimm can develop higher thought and learn with age. I thought this would be a character who is a Grimm, who's just so old and so experienced that he has developed cognition. That's why he's so good at fighting, is because he's had to deal with huntsmen and huntresses a lot, and he's just learnt from it. Nope, it's just a bloke. But what really got me was this chanting in the track. It sounds like it's saying zombie. Like, thanks, dickhead. Did you have to spell it out on the track as if I was some kind of... What do you think, episode? Do you think I'm an idiot? Well, you are still watching RWBY. Touche, episode, touche. And then we just see Cinder flying off with Arthur, and... Man... Just like the scene with Blake and Ruby, this episode reminded me of how much I miss characters just talking as friends. This scene reminds me how much I miss Mercury and Emerald. Like, they're not super interesting, but they are more interesting than any other villain aside from maybe Hazel, who, I love Roman and Nia, but they're not interesting characters, they're just fun villains. Mercury and Emerald are probably the most interesting, and they had fucking chemistry beyond just hating each other and being arrogant. There was a good back and forth between them, you know? But every interaction with the villains nowadays that's not Mercury and Emerald is just the same. We don't like each other. We arrogantly think we're better. I want to fuck Salem. I guess Hazel is different, but he hasn't really gotten to interact with anybody much, so he'll most likely interact with people later in the volume. Maybe they'll even write him well. You know, I don't want to be hopeful in my prediction, but maybe Hazel would be a fun, good character at the end of this whole series. Maybe. Not yet. And that was the episode. I needed a good laugh, but the episode needed to make me laugh with it and not at it.